you support, like a Savannah banana kind of thing, whatever it is, reach out to me on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, uh, TikTok, Instagram, even our email. It's all the Above the Bar podcast. Reach out. Let me know what you got going on. I'll tell you where to send the sticker to. You send me a sticker. We'll read all about it at no cost to you, live on the air, so that other people can know about what you got going on. As always, folks, that's sticker and a cause. Now, Doc, it gets hot down there, right? It gets pretty,
Yes.
like you guys get stupid crazy hot down there.
Hmm.
Well, you know what helps with some of that is blinds, shutters, shades over your windows, don't they?
Very true. And air conditioning.
And air
Air
conditioning.
conditioning. You got to be inside, you know. But I'm originally from Maine. That's where I grew up. I grew up on a little island off the coast of Maine. So
Oh,
so that's really my heritage. And then from there, I migrated to Los Angeles for 30 years before, during the pandemic, I ended up in Sarasota. So I've been
well, that
kind of all
you've been
across the
bouncing all
country.
over the place. Well,
Yeah.
our sponsor is Budget Blinds of East Greenbush and Budget Blinds of Hudson and Cooksaki, New York. And during the month of September, they're running a 25% off your entire order discount right now. Or for those that would qualify for it, they have options for either 12 or 18 months interest free on your entire order. As they tell us, some restrictions do apply. But this is an opportunity. Like if you're in a spot, like if you're up in the Northeast, Maine,
Well, yeah.
you need honeycomb shutters because you need something with insulation in your window. If
Hmm.
you're down there in Sarasota, you need either plantation shutters or roller shades to block that sun out. So make
Hmm.
sure you're reaching out. If you're up here in the land of Albany and Troy and around the area, you reach out to Budget Blinds of East Greenbush or Budget Blinds of Hudson and Cooksaki, and they will be more than happy to hook you up. Just let them know you're there to belly up to the bar. All right, Doc, all the stuff is done. It's out of the way.
Okay.
We're ready to go.
We're
So I want to
ready to
make
go.
sure I got my information correct. And Nate's already jumping in. He said, shake my head. Red Sox. Why? Because she's from Maine, brother. Orioles can't. Absolutely. Steelers and Yankee stickers are not allowed on the board. Absolutely would agree with that. No, like minor league sports, I'm good with it. Pro sports, if you're not one of my teams, I can't help you. But
Mhm.
I want to make sure I got this right. So you've been at this for 30 years in
Mhm.
holistic health. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And you're running but while all this is going on, you've got experience in holistic health, proactive aging, which I'm very curious what that means. We've all heard about stress management and wellness solutions, but have where did it all start? Like, what was the first foray into the holistic side of things?
Well, I have to say it was the little island I grew up on off the coast of Maine because, where I grew up, it was a fishing village and we didn't have any doctors. So I had a couple of grandmothers and my mother who would make tonics and tinctures and, folk medicine. And I kind of grew up around it and really took it for granted. I didn't think much about it. We just weren't a pill community. We didn't take a lot of medication. And then, long story short, I was a single mother with two children, and I went back to the university to finish my degree, and I was on welfare at the time. I was, struggling like crazy. I got through school, crashed and burned because I was so stressed out from all of everything I'd been doing. And what I did is I started to go back to my roots and say, how can I heal and get myself back on my feet? Well, diet, exercise, rest, and using herbs and aromatherapy and all the natural sciences. And that's what got me on the road.
Wow. So I mean, it was really, it started with healing you.
Yeah.
That's how it started.
Well, Hippocrates, physician heal thyself. If you got to walk your talk and you really have to come from a place of where you really understand what people are going through, or how can you possibly help them? You can't help them from a book. You got to know it. You got to live it.
So so that so I'm always interested in holistic medicine, and I've heard the stories, and I'll be the first to tell you when I've heard the story but never done the full blown research about how the Rockefeller, I think it was the Rockefellers, and learning how petroleum products can be used in medications. They already were controlling the petroleum products, so they basically at that time, most medical facilities were still teaching holistic processes and kind of saying, hey, you can find this, you can get this. And then the Rockefellers came in with their money and said, hey, let's go ahead and teach you how to push a pill
Hmm.
and make things a
Hmm.
little bit more accessible to everybody. Let's get that pill pushed out.
Hmm.
So
Right.
am I
Yeah.
hitting it about right?
You're hitting it about right. It's called big pharma and big, the medical not to bash, drugs and medicines because, antibiotics certainly have done a
For sure.
wonderful for the world, but we are a pill happy society. And when I first started down the naturopathic road, it was closer to 40 years now ago, I was considered a quack.
Mhm.
I mean, that's what they would say, and there was a lot of things that we used to make our potions and our herbal medicines and stuff in private rooms somewhere. It was like almost like being a drug dealer because
Oh, wow.
you weren't allowed to put that stuff out there or to really work with people on simple things, you know. So yeah, you're absolutely right. And big pharma, of course, is it has a lot of money and a lot of control of our government. And but I will say that it's really interesting that it's all starting to become mainstream now, isn't it?
It
People,
really is. It
yeah, yeah.
really is. People are more apt to go back to those things, and I think a lot of it is, you know what I blame most of it on is the commercials.
Hmm.
If I watch a commercial and it's like, "Hey, take such and such, it'll cure this," and then they start rattling off, uh, may have symptoms of loose stool, runny stool,
Hmm.
greasy stool, could have a heart attack. If you start to have muscle aches, this is a sign of a serious condition. Stop taking. See your. Whoa, whoa! I
Yeah,
just
yeah.
thought this was going to clear up my acne. What are we talking about here? Like, it almost I think people are tired of the drastic, side effects to a lot of these things.
Right. Well, I mean, if you break this down and you think about it, when you take medicine in, it's a chemical, okay? Now, your body does not operate on chemicals. It operates on vitamins and minerals and
Okay.
nutrition. That's the fuel that builds the body, allows it to grow, allows it to reproduce and to produce and to stay healthy. That's what the body needs. So if you take something that is toxic to the body, and you put in it, the body's got to react some way. It's got to fight it because it's a miraculous machine. And that's why we get those side effects because you're actually putting a poison inside your body. Antibiotics is a great example. I mean, as I said, sometimes we have to take them, but when you put them in, they ruin your gut, the
100%.
microbiota in your gut. So what do you do? The real key is to build it back up again. But doctors traditionally don't say, okay, we've ruined your gut bacteria. Now let's go see this person who's going to teach you how to eat right and build it back up. That's where they fall down. They just kind of it ends there.
That's interesting because you know what? My son's pediatrician actually will say now, "Hey, they're on antibiotics. Make sure they're taking a probiotic or something." They recommend those things now.
Yeah.
Now this is kind of that line, and you've mentioned antibiotics a couple times now. Is there a line for you from a holistic standpoint where you kind of say, okay, holistic can get me to X. Past X, we really need to go to that pharma level. Is there a level for you, or do you believe that, hey, you should be able to do all this with holistic if you've always been on holistic?
Two things. First off, as a naturopath, our point of view is prevention over cure. So what we teach how to prevent getting sick. Who wants to cure sickness? You're sick. you
Ounce of
know.
prevention, pound of cure.
Exactly. So that is our philosophy is let's do all of the things that we can do to boost your health and vitality so you don't need to take those medications. However, we live in a very toxic world. We live in a high stress world. We live in a burnout world. We live in a world where people eat a terrible diet. They don't exercise. I mean, we can go on and on and on. And at some point, the body breaks down, and we maybe do need that quick fix to come in, like, we'll keep using the antibiotics as an example, to come back in and to really kill whatever it is that we've, made in there. But it's about building it back. That's the whole key. So to answer your question, no, you wouldn't come to me for heart surgery. I mean, and I would say, please, and and if you have cancer, I mean, I've worked with many cancer patients, and they are on chemo, or they are, taking some kind of medication, but I'm working holistically to get them to move, to get their body, the stuff to move through their body,
Gotcha.
to eat properly. So you're working hand in hand. And I believe that when we have perfect health care in this world is when allopathic and alternative doctors come together, and we marry together, and we work together to create. But the problem we have is money.
Oh yeah.
Big pharma does not want to share.
Look, I am so anti. Like I truly believe in some of the. I don't know if the Europeans get everything right, but there's a lot of things that their government. So you can go overseas, folks. If you didn't know this, you're never going to see a commercial on TV for a medication. You're never going to see it. They also are not allowed to solicit in a lot of countries. You're not allowed to have salespeople that solicit doctors and drop off free samples and things of that nature to a doctor's office so that they push a medication to their patients in a lot of other countries. Where here, you can put it on TV, you can put it on a billboard. We can have celebrities talking about, hey, this medication that's supposed to be for diabetes that now you guys can't get because I don't want to work out. Sorry about that, but look at all the weight that I lost.
Mhm.
That's Listen, folks, it's amazing what getting up off your ass and go do something will
E-
do
e-
for you.
Exactly.
It's
And
crazy.
in Europe, it's very acceptable to practice aromatherapy. Now, I have a
Oh, really?
master's in aromatherapy. Even the royal family practices. I mean, it's part of the holistic system because herbs and things, have such wonderful, tremendous benefits, and yet we don't use the natural world. And as it's been said, nature provides everything we need. We just
Yeah.
have to use it properly,
Have
which
to be
we
able to
don't.
find it. No, I mean, what is it? Aspirin originally came from the bark of a tree.
Willow,
It,
yeah, the white willow bark, yeah.
yeah. So
Mhm.
there's your aspirin, folks. But now the other side to it is, um, I'm going to play a little devil's advocate. I always have to, Doc. I'm a big fan of it.
Okay.
So we know that if I went back, say 100 years, just for easy math, I went back 100 years, 1924, in Maine. We'll go with Maine. With the knowledge you have, you would be the town, the village, whatever it was, doctor. You would be able. Everybody goes, go see Dr. Lynn. She'll hook you up with, squirrel warts and tree
Yeah.
bark and,
Oh,
whatever it
yeah.
is,
Oh, yeah.
and you would take care of somebody. Our evidence then was somebody got better.
Mhm.
What evidence today? We have the FDA and, you know, the pockets that they're in, everybody's in their pockets. Some people will say that they're actually too stringent, and that's why it's a delay on a lot of the things that we get in this country compared to some other places. What evidence or what is the process now in the holistic world for these things to get approved? Like, I remember the big ginkgo biloba thing. Hey,
Mhm.
take ginkgo biloba to help your memory. You'll remember everything. And that was huge during the 90s and into the early 2000s. You don't hear about it anymore.
Mhm.
But what do we have now, or what is the process that vets this stuff to be able to say, no, this is really does work?
Mhm. Well, you have two things. First off, wherever something, if you're using herbs or aromatherapy comes for, the oil and stuff comes from the herbs. If you're using herbs and plants as part of your process of healing or whatever, it depending upon the soil and where it is and the sunshine and the water in different parts of the world, they react and act differently. So there is no way for me to say, okay, sage is really good for your memory. It's really good for your digestive system. So take sage. Now, I can't regulate that sage because it's a plant. It's part of
Mhm.
nature. That's why pills work, because we can regulate them. We can just crank them right out. So that's part of the problem. And I can tell you, I can give you an example. The example I would give you is cannabis. If the pharmaceutical company could control cannabis, it would be legal.
Oh
But
yeah.
it's but they can't control it, because if you grow a cannabis plant in one kind of soil and in another kind of soil, you're going to get something different, because that's how plants live, is by the soil that they use. So the problem is that they can't get a hold of it and they can't regulate it, because you and I can grow any sage, or we can even in many places grow our own cannabis, right? And,
Yeah.
and, and in many places it's recreational. Here in Florida, it's medicinal, very easy to get, but what is cannabis? Cannabis is an herb. Cannabis has been used since the beginning of time for such wonderful things. And yet, why is it illegal? Well, Big Pharma can't control it.
Well, have you ever? I love that you got into the cannabis thing for a minute. Have you ever looked into the racist overtones for why it was why it was made illegal?
Oh,
Here,
absolutely. Yeah.
it's
Reefer.
yeah, reefer.
Reefer.
It was
Reefer
it
man.
reefer man, and it made them. It makes the Mexicans crazy, and they're going to rape all your women. It was
Exactly.
used as a campaign, but do you know who was actually even bigger? I love this one. Do you know who was the biggest um, advocate for for making marijuana illegal? The biggest, like he pushed it so hard and funded it the most. You know who it was?
No.
Howard Hughes, the,
Really?
the media guy, Howard Hughes. And here's why: Howard Hughes owned all the paper mills and all the paper mills around the country that supplied the paper for his newspapers. Well, a cheaper form of paper at that time that you could have made newspapers out of that he could not control was hemp.
Yes.
So the male plant for marijuana. So
Hmm.
he pushed for the plant to be considered as illegal and this drug all the way to the highest level of scheduling, so that it would end up damaging the idea of hemp paper or hemp fabrics and pushing them out of the way, which gave his paper and his newspapers continued control of the media. He was look, that one, when I learned about that, when I did my research into it the first time I heard it, I was like, that shit blew my mind.
It just goes to show you, Sean, that, big money, big money in this country, and I'm not going to get into any political things, but in this country, well, I'll say, I mean, I think
Say
everyone
it.
in our government is crooked. That's my opinion. They're all
Oh,
crooked, right, left, wherever. They're all crooked, and they're
amen.
all got their hands in the pockets, and we're all paying for it. And these are the kinds of things that they manipulate these things so that. Say your cannabis industry has been how long is the cannabis industry an herb, a medicinal herb that we know works for many things. We know people don't get addicted to it. We know all the wonderful benefits of hemp, and we go on and on and on. Why is it so hard to get that through?
See, now it's interesting that you went with the big pharma side. I used to be in the transportation industry,
Hmm.
and what I always heard was the reason it hasn't been legalized is that the transportation industry doesn't have a way, and the police don't have a way to instantly um, test for it to see if somebody is.
Oh. Hmm.
So that hurts them. But my personal opinion, I'm going to tell you my personal opinion why. I can tell you it's never been legalized, because if you turned around and you federally legalized marijuana from a federal level, so
Hmm.
all these places, but they say, oh, you got to be drug tested, drug tested. You kill it. You kill an industry there, because you still have to trust for the hard stuff, but you kill an industry that's been creating, drug testing. You then also all these people, because of the way we do things. Now I do disagree with this. I think if a crime was illegal and you got convicted of a crime at that time, you finish your time. But we have a history in this country that if something becomes legal that was illegal before, you have to then release those people back into society, because no longer is their crime a problem. You have to let them in. And you look, the corporate prisons that are out there do not want to let those folks go. I'm a,
Mhm.
I think that should be one of the. You want my vote as a president. Prove to me that you're going to outlaw corporate prison. You could have my vote. I don't care what side of the
Mhm.
fence you're on. But
Mhm.
the corporate prisons then would have to release these people. And folks, if you didn't know it, corporate prisons trade inmates as stocks. Hey, we're short 3 people in our work division. I'll give me 3. You have extra.
Mhm.
They'll come to our
Mhm.
place. We'll trade you a few later. That's how they do it. They trade them like stocks.
Mhm.
It's a fact. But that's a sidebar thing that I can talk about all day because I'm a very hey, guess what, folks? When you guys all hated on the last president, who I didn't vote for him either, you voted for the guy who created all the crime bills that incarcerated most people today, and why judges don't have the power to make decisions the way they're supposed to. And also
Mhm.
said that all sentences had to be served 80% so that that state could receive federal funding. Figure it out, folks. A little bit of reading goes a long
Yep.
way.
Yeah.
That reading
Yeah.
thing, Dr. Lynn, that reading thing will get you every damn
Oh,
time, won't it?
every time, every
Every
time.
time. Son of
Once
a
you start down that rabbit hole.
it's a son of a gun. So if somebody, and I want to stay with the holistic. I know we made a left turn there. So if I was saying, and I do, I have stomach issues. I have to go see a hepatologist for my stomach. I've had some liver issues. I have no problem putting it out as I'm drinking whiskey, and I say that it's not that kind of liver issues, folks. But what would you say to somebody like me if you said, hey, if I said, hey, doc, when I eat, you know, I always seem bloated no matter what it is, and I always, and I have to go see this person, and they always say the same thing. It didn't go up, it didn't go down. You just have abnormal liver functions. And I only
Mhm.
drink on Wednesdays, just
Mhm.
FYI. So
Mhm.
what would you say to somebody like me that you were like, hey, start here?
Well, the first thing we do an assessment of your life, your lifestyle, and different things about your life because as a naturopath, we focus on body, mind, and soul. We don't focus just on the body because we believe that you are a tripart being. And if you don't balance out all 3 of those, you don't have perfect health. And so we try to integrate. So that it begins with really working with the person and finding out just things that are going on in their life. Once you
Uh,
find out those kinds of things, their lifestyle,
Hit
that
me up, doc. We got
includes,
we got it. If we can do a quick one, you can evaluate me, and then we'll
okay,
answer Aunt Rose's question. So hit me up real quick. We'll do a quick eval on me, and then we'll see where we're at.
you want me to do a quick
Let's
eval
do
on
it. If we
you?
can do, if you got time, do we have time to do like a quick eval? Like I don't know how
Sure,
long it
sure,
takes.
sure. Well, I would ask you, first up, I'd ask you what you do. I kind of know that. I would ask you, are you married?
Yes, that's a
Okay.
stressor in itself.
How's your marriage?
Very good, actually. Yes,
Okay.
I
You
think
have
it is.
children. You have
Uh,
children?
8.
8 children.
Yes.
Wow, that's a lot. It's a lot of energy. It's a lot going on there, right? You
Wife
got
had 4. I had 3. We went half on one. Only 2 of them are still at home.
okay, okay. But that's a lot of people to think about and to worry about and to have to do all of that stuff with. So I'm looking at those kinds of things with you. Give me an idea of what your day is like. I mean, what do you eat?
So,
Do you
so,
exercise? What do you do?
so I get up at about 6 a.m. Hit the snooze. Get up at 6:09. That's actually what I do. 6 o'clock it goes off. Hit the snooze. 6:09 I get out of the bed. Uh, Clean up, shower. I normally have a bowl of cereal. Take the 4 medications that I'm on right now. I then turn around and take finish my cup. I have 1 cup of coffee.
Mhm.
Take one. My wife takes 1 kid to school if he's here because I have one that goes back and forth. She takes one to school. I take another to school, and then I start my work day. Normally, try to have my work day started by 8. I'm either uh, on the computer working out something. I'm driving around neighborhoods, putting out signs, or I'm doing consultations with clients. Uh, Hint, hint, folks, if you didn't realize it, I own the budget blinds that I advertise with. Hint, hint. Uh, or I might be doing that, or I might be actually hanging blinds. My son's my installer,
Mhm.
but I might be
Mhm.
actually at somebody's house hanging blinds.
Mhm. Well, you seem to me to be pretty happy, balanced person.
I am.
When I look at you, I look at your eyes, I look at your skin, I'm kind of examining, looking at, your energy. You seem to be a very happy person. If you said to me, that what you wanted to know is about the bloating, I'd have to
Yes.
sit down, we'd have to look at your medications. How do those medications, how are they interacting with each other?
Okay.
What are you eating in your diet that maybe is interacting with these medications? Maybe there's something in your diet that you're not digesting properly. I would look at taking, let's say, taking everything back, eating a really pure diet, and then sort of adding things back.
Now it's
That's
funny you
really how
say
we do
that.
it.
I just was talking to my wife about that. Now, and Aunt Rose, I promise we're getting to your question. What define a pure diet for me? Because I was actually just having this conversation with my wife. I was like, you know what? I feel like I should just go back to eating one thing and then adding stuff back into my diet until I figure
Mhm.
out what the hell's going on.
Well, the diet that I always advocate for is the Mediterranean diet because the Mediterranean diet with the pyramid. I mean, that's really as
What's in that?
pure. That is really mostly fish,
Oh,
which is your
fish.
omega-3. You're getting olive oil. You're eating lots of fruits and vegetables. You eat very limited meat. Chicken is in there, but and it's a lot of herbs and things like that. Glass of wine is in there. But what happens is, yeah, yeah, yeah. You know, there's no junk food in there. It's nowhere in the pyramid. It says, hey, over here, let's have some cookies. It doesn't say that. And so it's really about eating a pure diet and eating one, eating local and
I'm a big
eating,
fan of eating local.
yeah, and eating the right amount of food because that's the other part of it. People eat too much food. They're too inactive, you know. So, I mean, the statistic is we have 36% people in this country are obese.
It's
That's
crazy.
crazy. It's really crazy. In a country that's supposed to be as smart as our country, and my big thing is when you go to a grocery store, the fruits and vegetables and organic foods are very expensive, and the junk food's cheap.
Right. Well, that's
Flip
Eh,
it.
I've had that conversation with folks, like, people they always say that in inner city communities, they're like, "Oh, people eat a lot of junk." Yeah, because they can't afford the fruits and vegetables. I can remember, and look, folks, go look this up. This is a real term. In Baltimore, we used to have what they called the Arabs, which were horse-drawn carriages that a guy would walk through the streets in Baltimore. I, God, somebody told me they still do it, but they would walk the streets and the Arab would yell, fresh fruit, fresh vegetables. And he had a cart of fruits and vegetables that he would sell right there in front of your house. And folks, look it up. It's a term. It's a Baltimore thing. I know somebody's gonna be like,
Mhm.
you can't call someone an Arab. Yeah, it's a term. It's not like me being horrible as a person. But this was a thing. So I absolutely agree with you. Let me get to Aunt Rose's question, and I'm going to
Okay.
kind of rephrase it. Aunt Rose, her question was: are there some plants or oils that shouldn't be used together? More so, how would I research or it to find out? Like, hey, maybe I'm taking a, a garlic extract for a plant base, but at the same time, I don't know. The first oil that came to mind was castor, um, but I'm taking some kind of an oil also. Like, how would I research that?
Well, first off, you want to work with someone who's really qualified and know what they're doing because it is absolutely true. Nature does have a poison aspect to it too, and there are certain things that cannot be mixed together. For example, you would not want to take a stimulant herb, say like a cinnamon or a ginger, something that kind of charges you up, and put it with a sedative herb because they're fighting each other. What are you trying to do? So it's getting the right, diagnosis as to what the person really needs. Do they need to go more in the sedative end or do they need more of a stimulative? So you have to be very careful, and you also have to be very careful how you mix herbs and things like that with drugs because there can be a toxic reaction there too.
Yeah, that was Aunt Rose's other question, and was what type of herbs or anything of a holistic standpoint would you recommend her watching out? She takes high blood pressure medication, anything that you would tell her, hey, this is a plant or an herb, like, hey, you
Mm.
probably shouldn't be taking. It's called Aunt Rose. It's called indica. You're not supposed to take indica. And you know what I mean, Aunt Rose. Don't be taking no indica with your blood pressure medication. You're gonna
Mhm.
be in the couch. You know that.
Right. But you want to stay away from things that are overly stimulating. And, there are certain herbs and things, like I said. And the best way to think about herbs and stuff and how they react is think about what happens when you eat something. If you eat like a hot pepper,
Mm-hmm.
man, your body really heats up and you
Sweating.
start to sweat. You know what that's circulation. That's stimulation, that's
Oh, okay.
circulation. So, but if you take something like you drink some chamomile tea stimulates melatonin. You start serotonin. You start to chill out with chamomile tea. So you have to look at what are you trying to accomplish and marry that thing with it.
Now, as all this is kind of, because this is, I love everything about this, doc. All the different aspects of it. How about, there's some things that are popping up more and more in our communities that we see more and more. So we hear about, everybody thinks they have ADD or ADHD, which my
Mhm.
argument to that is put your cell phone down and stop having a stimulant in your face every 3 minutes. And I promise you, your ADD will go away when you have the ability to focus on something. It's amazing how that works for you. But we hear ADD, ADHD. Um, it's amazing, how much we hear of children now with some form of on the spectrum of some form of autism today. Is there anything that you've seen or researched that you would say, hey, get with your holistic specialist or doctor in your community to do a proper evaluation, but
Mhm.
this is something that has been showing promise for things like different types of autism.
Right. Well, we first have to take a step back and you have to look at the diet that most of these kids have been eating. I mean, I was not raised on a fast food or a processed food diet. I mean, we were raised on organic food that we ate what was on the island. I know that's kind of, but my generation coming up,
100%.
and I'm part of the hippie generation. I mean, we went out and plowed our potatoes and everything, and tried to make everything, and back to land, we called it. But, so we have to kind of look at that. And also the cell phones, these kids today, you're right. They are, from the time they're a little baby, an iPad is put in front of them. And that's what they do. And parents put them in front of that. And it's really easy to give a pill when you're parenting. And where I'm going with this is I remember when Ritalin was the big thing.
Oh, yes.
And now nobody would take Ritalin. But you know what? And I used to look at that and I think, well, maybe if those parents kind of parented a little bit, and maybe if there's a little sense of discipline there, it doesn't mean you got to beat the kid. I'm not
Eh,
talking that. But well, yeah, yeah, yeah. But make these little kids, have them eat right, get them outdoors running and some playtime, give them some discipline yourself,
Well,
and
I think people miss
maybe,
the term discipline. Like,
yeah,
people think discipline is like, once we're going to go outside and I'm going to beat you right now, this is going to be what's about to happen. That's not discipline, folks.
right.
Discipline can be, hey, and I'm going to tell you right now, it is okay to put your kid with a device because that's society. They need to understand how these things work. But it's also okay to take it away and go outside. But I
Hmm.
want to watch. Get out of my house. Go
Hmm.
away. Goodbye. I
Hmm.
recently had this conversation with my wife. My 14-year-old had done something, and we had taken his phone away from him. And she goes, "Well, when he got to school, I gave it back to him in case there was an emergency." And I was like, "You do realize not having that phone forces him to critically think?" And she's like, "What?" I was like, "By not having a phone, he cannot just pick it up and call someone or Google the answer. He has to critically think and figure out how to problem solve. It is
Hmm.
part of life. Let's problem solve this. that is probably to me the biggest thing that's missing in a lot of this is kids
Mhm.
don't problem solve. So I love the idea of everything, but the other side to it, and I think you kind of touched on it there, Doc, was and my old master guns, he'll tell you he probably thought I had ADD at some point in time. He says everything's 100% spot on. He probably thought I had ADD. I had ASSHOLE. It wasn't just ADD. I was just an asshole. But the other side to a lot of this is, and I've heard this before, all this holistic stuff, that's a rich person's cure. That's a rich person's plan. And you kind of touched on it, because reality of it is, if you've never grown a garden, it ain't cheap. And if you ain't
Right.
got the land, what the hell are you going to do?
Mhm.
So for folks that are out there like, this sounds great and this sounds cute, that two people that have a couple of nickels to rub together are talking about being holistic. And my mom is from your generation. My mother says it all the time, where people are like, oh, I'm allergic to this, I'm allergic to that. My mother was like, we were broke. The only thing I was allergic to was being hungry.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Like I was going to eat whatever you put in front of me, and nobody was allergic to
right.
shit.
Like I told you, I grew up on a little island, a
Right. My
fishing
mother grew
village.
up in the mountains of Tennessee.
Okay, in Maine in the winter, and it was damn tough, and everybody was really poor, but everybody we all banded together. But guess what? We ate the fish the minute it came out of the water, it was in the frying pan. Okay. And the blueberries, we went out and picked them and brought them in, and that's how we made the blueberry. I mean, everything was fresh. My mother would take the fruits and she would can things. So we had fresh fruits and vegetables in the wintertime. We ate organically before it was even a term. And
Right.
my mother used to always say, the reason you and your brother were not sick that much is because this is how we ate. We didn't eat processed food.
Right. You
And
didn't eat shit.
you didn't. So I mean, and so when people say yeah, it's costly, there are
Right.
farmers markets. Farmers markets are a great place and most everybody has a farmers market
Yeah,
somewhere
we
where
have a
you
ton of
can
them
get
around here. But
get
what's some other avenues? Because like we have farmers markets. I live 3 miles away from the center of Troy, New York, which is a very urban area in this community. They have a farmers market, but I mean that's a great example. But I tell you right now, I can go down to that farmers market and be like, it is absolutely hipsters with their little bags and
Mhm.
you know some guy from Vermont who's like, so you know, man, this is a organically fed uh calf that I myself every day at 3 in the morning would rub its shoulders so that
Mhm.
when we humanely put it down, I actually got it high myself, and then we went and took care of it and had a ceremony.
Mm.
It's $45 for 2 ounces, and you're like, what? You know,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
like how do you? And Aunt Rose brings up a great point. There's no farmers markets in the winter, you
Mhm.
know,
Mm.
so what do you say to folks? Like, what's some other alternatives? Like we actually have co-ops here where I
Mhm.
live at. I'm telling
Mhm.
you, I'm Dr. Lynn. I got all the hippies. They're all hiding in Albany. They're all hiding in Albany.
They were
But
all my friends. I mean, I'll share with you and your listeners. I mean, I went to Woodstock. Okay.
Dr. Lynn, you've become the coolest person. Rose, don't be mad. Please don't tell Clay I said anything. Her son's like an amazing, amazing drummer. Dr. Lynn, you just became the coolest person that I've had on the show. Real quick, because we're getting close to that time. Who was your favorite group that you saw in Woodstock?
Well, I saw the Who do the Tommy rock opera as the sun was coming up, sitting
Get the
in a
fuck out of
pile of
here.
mud. That
So,
that I saw Cretans. I saw Janis Joplin.
Aunt
Um,
Rose says you're not old enough. Aunt Rose says you're not old enough.
I am. Aunt Rose, I turned 70 years old this year.
So how old were
Yeah,
you at Woodstock? Like 6?
16.
Wow. So
Shouldn't have been there. Should not have been there. No, I should not have been there. Way too young.
you didn't take the brown acid though, right?
No, no, no,
That
no. I didn't do anything.
but that was Wavy Gravy in the documentary. He's like, don't take the brown acid. It's not good. Look, she says, "Holy cow, you're gorgeous." But
Oh,
but Dr. Lynn, so I mean, you know who? Because Crosby, Stills, and Nash and Young were at
Hmm.
Woodstock
Hmm.
because it was
Yeah,
N Young, the one album, which in my
right.
opinion is the best album that Crosby, Stills, and Nash ever did. Was
True.
Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. I
Hmm.
think that's Dr. Lynn. You just became the coolest person to ever be on the show. I just want you to
And
know that.
I got in for free because we broke we by the
Were you
time
part of
we
the
got
fence
there,
breaking?
well, by the time we got there, the fence was broken down. So we were just like kids run. I mean, everybody was in. It was just
Debauchery,
unbelievable. Yeah,
debauchery, and great music. Oh,
yeah, it just
oh.
was. And but I mean, should I? No, at 16, no, 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 no. That when I look back on that, I go, Mom.
You saw things that now you're doing holistic medicine from the
Yeah,
shit you saw then.
yeah, we were practicing. Yeah, there was some holistic stuff going on back there.
There was lots
Yes,
of holistic. I got
lots of it.
mushrooms, I got weed,
Mushrooms. Yep,
I
yep,
got all
yep,
kinds of stuff. Oh,
yep,
Aunt
yep.
Rose wants to Aunt Rose, there is no pictures because that means there's no evidence.
That's right.
That's why I love my generation. We were the last generation that had no pictures.
Hmm.
There's no evidence of any of that shit. But so Dr. Lynn, you just became the coolest person. I'm telling you right now, you just became the coolest person. So at all these different things that you're talking about though, but I do want to go back to that question though of if somebody is saying to themselves, "Hey, I really want to be involved and I really believe that I should do this." And look, I have a daughter that went vegan in college and made it on a college budget and she was able to figure it out. I do believe there's a process to it. But what would you say to somebody who says, "Hey, it's very difficult in my community. I live in a more urban community. Maybe they're in a food desert type community. What are some of the ways that I love the Mediterranean diet?
Hmm.
That's me. I would be a
Hmm.
pescatarian tomorrow if I didn't have kids. I
Hmm.
didn't like cheeseburgers.
Yeah.
Just saying. But what's some of the ways that, like, from a budget friendly standpoint, that people can start into this process?
Well, there's always, I mean, if you have a freezer and you can always can foods, you can always put foods up if you let's say you go and you gather a bunch of like my mother used to, she'd take us out and she'd say, "Okay, the blueberries are out. Everybody fill your buckets." And we'd take them home and, we would freeze some. She would can some. She would make jams with some. I mean, that way we had it all winter long. So there's always a way to eat healthy if you want to eat healthy. There's always a way to exercise if you want to exercise. It all begins right up here. It's all a matter of, the most important thing in your life is your health. And if you don't care about it, nobody else is really going to. So it's about caring about yourself and thinking about what you're putting in yourself and what you want to do with your energy. Because in the end, that's all we are is energy. And so what kind of energy do you want to put out? Where do you want to put your energy? Where are your priorities? And that's really, if your priority is your health, you'll figure out a way to do it.
I would agree with that. And look, folks, you can always go on to drlynn.com, and that's Dr. Doctor Lynn Lynn.com. All of her stuff's there. You've got your book series is on there that anybody can get a hold of. In that book series, you got Soul Walking and Naturopathic Wellness series is in there. You got, like you said, almost 40 years of doing this. So there's a ton of stuff in there. Anything new coming out and I don't want to skip over anything, folks. Like, this is the kind of thing we could probably do 12 episodes on. But is there anything new coming out or anything that's on the website that you would say, "Hey, folks, go check this out," or if they wanted to contact you about?
Well, what I'm doing is I'm revising my karma, and we have another edition coming out. So this is going to be sort of taking it to another level. So that's the new thing. There'll be a new book coming out next year. So that's really the main thing that I'm working on right now, other than teaching, and I do lecturing and stuff like that.
Now, what do you mean revising your karma?
Well, the original book that I wrote, original Karma book, and there's another one called the Soul Walking. It's the first part of the Soul Walking series. What I'm doing is those two are coming together in a whole. It's really a practical guide that I'm putting together for anyone to be able to understand how to work their karma, what karma means, how to turn your life and make it prosperous, body, mind, and soul.
Now, when I think of karma, I think of energy. That's the
Hmm.
like be don't be a look, don't be a dick. Be good to other people, and if you're good and you're happy and you smile, other
Hmm.
people will smile back at you. And my dad was the one that my dad never said karma, but my dad was the first one that was like, don't be an ass to people because they're going to be an
Hmm.
ass right back to you, whether they have to listen to you or not.
Hmm.
Try to be nice to somebody, even if you
Hmm.
have to get them to do something. You can be
Hmm.
forceful and be nice at the same time, and you'll be amazed that what comes back to you. That's
Right.
karma, right? I would consider that karma.
Well, the pop culture term of karma is good and bad really isn't
Right.
karma, because karma is not about judgment, and that's judgment. If I judge
Gotcha.
your actions as good or bad, karma is really about working your own self. It's your work. And if I work really hard to be a kind and considerate person, then that's the energy I'm going to put out there. And more than likely, it will come back to me. But if it doesn't, I know how to put up that shield and continue to be a kind and considerate person, rather than getting sucked into an argument with someone and fighting with someone, and because I don't want to go there. So karma is really about working through what it is that you're here to work on. And karma teaches us that we have four great passions that we all have to work on, and everything comes from these four. And it's deceit, greed, anger, and pride. And one of those is more prominent in everyone's life than the other. So, for example, if you keep running into all these people that keep creating arguments and getting your dander up and you're getting angry and it keeps going and going, that's the karmic circle you're in.
Oh,
And
no.
if you keep going, they make me angry and this makes me angry, you can't get past it. But when you go, wow, this is what anger feels like. I don't want to be angry. How do I remove myself from this angry energy? And you start to become aware and work on yours, then that starts to disappear and you start to draw positive energy in. That's really what karma is.
It just kind of came to me as I think about a lot of what you talk about from the food you eat, from karma sounds very much like attitude that you present to the world,
Hmm.
how you present yourself and your attitude to the world. A lot of this is, to me, how you treat the environment you're presented in. So
Hmm.
I could turn around and say, "Oh, woe is the world I live in. I can only go to McDonald's. I can only get Burger King. I like a Burger King chicken sandwich with uh, cheese and onions on it. I ain't gonna lie, but I can only go to Burger King. I can only eat this way. I'm gonna take my medication because my doctor says this is the only thing I can do." And you know what? And everybody's an asshole back to them.
Hmm.
I can choose to be that, or I
Hmm.
can cure it through, let's call it what it is. It's a holistic approach, whole me, whole I, whole person approach that says, why don't you smile at people when you walk past them?
Hmm.
Dr. Lynn, I smile at everyone I walk past.
Hmm. And
You
what
know what?
happens?
I get a smile back. Do you know why I do it
There you
though?
go.
Do you know why I do it? You're gonna call me a crazy person in a minute. But you know why I do it? So one time I heard a story, and I don't know how true it is. It was about a man in New York City that wrote a suicide note that said, I'm gonna go jump off the Brooklyn Bridge. But if one person smiles at me on the way to the Brooklyn Bridge, I won't do it."
Hmm.
Well, he jumped off the Brooklyn Bridge.
Hmm.
And I heard, and this was like in the 1920s or 30s, this letter was written. And I don't
Hmm.
know if it's true or not, but every person I walk past, I smile because I always think maybe I'm the smile that gives them a better day, that they go, well, damn, somebody's smiling at me, and they
Uh,
don't jump off the bridge.
Absolutely. And you may have been, it's like sometimes I would have students come up to me and they would break down crying in my arms and I'd give them a big hug. And I might have been the only person that day that gave them a moment. And that moment, you can't put a price tag on that. So that's really, and when you do that, you're working your karma. That stuff comes back to you and you don't look for it to come back. You're not looking for anything. It's just all of a sudden things come to you. And I can't tell you the things that have come to me, the positive things that I have a stack this big of letters and emails from people I don't even know who they are. Dr. Lynn, you said this in your class and it changed my whole life. And it's like, then I did my karma. It's what I was supposed to do.
Isn't that there's no better feeling, no better reward for
Yeah.
me in my career than when I had a Marine that said to me, "Hey, Gunny, because of you, I blank. Hey, and it was a little bit of a different world. I might have lit somebody up like a Christmas tree
Hmm.
to have to get them back to where they need to be. Hey, guess what, folks? Toxic masculinity. It's why you still get to complain about things.
Hmm.
Um, those that know will be like, yeah, like we need toxic masculinity in the right places. But Marines that would say, Gunny, you lit me up like a Christmas tree one day because I was just acting a fool. And now I'm a gunny also, or a mass sergeant because of what you did. And I think back to that day that you got in my ass, and
Hmm.
because that's just the way we're wired that way. We're not wired to go, let me hold your hand and fluff it up a little bit. We're in the services, we're wired to, hey, shithead, stop.
Right.
I'm using much kinder language.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's okay.
I've called people
I've
everything
heard
but a
it.
child of God before. Um,
I've heard it all.
but I really believe that that's part. Again, going back to that karma side, the way you explained it, I think about it and I think, no, that's part of karma. That's using your energy to motivate somebody the way they needed to go because that's what the situation dictated.
Exactly, exactly. It's all about energy, and it's about awareness of you as you are a unique package of energy, and you can do whatever you want with it. There are only two things in your life you cannot change. The only two things. You cannot change your individuality, and you cannot change your family of origin, the sperm and the egg that made you. You can't
That's it.
change those two things, but
That's it.
you can change your sex, you can change your name, you can change your looks, you can change your marriage, you can change everything else, attitude, belief, everything in your life you can change, but you can't change those two things. And that makes each of us a very unique and special person, right?
Absolutely. And we got to get ready to close down. Do you know who Neil deGrasse Tyson is?
Yes.
I just saw a thing with him the other day where he said, if you were to look at every possible combination of DNA in the world,
Hmm.
what did he say? There's been over 10 billion people ever born on the planet, I think is what the number was. Don't quote me on that, folks. But he said, if you look at every possible combination, we are nowhere near like a tenth of the possible combinations. So the fact that you exist today at this time makes you as unique of an individual as you could possibly ever be. There are so many combinations possible that will never exist,
Hmm.
that there's no possibility for them to exist. So folks, listen to Dr. Lynn and I don't know nothing. Dr. Lynn, she got a doctor in front of her name. She knows something. We are telling you, guess what? No matter how shitty your day is, there is no one that will ever exist on this planet that is as unique of an individual as you are.
Hmm.
So take advantage of that uniqueness and make the world a little bit of a better place. Now, Dr. Lynn, if we know that they can go to drDoctorLynn.com, LYNN.com to find you. Any upcoming, you have your weekly Zooms that you're doing. Those are
Hmm.
if they wanted to sign up for those Zooms, can they go to the .com for that?
They can. I have a class on Wednesday and I have one on Saturday. And periodically I do lectures and, sometimes I'll do a Zoom lecture here and there. So yeah, that's how they can find me. And I
Any
also private consultation. So there's a place where anyone can get in touch with me if they want to set up private
so
consultations.
they can go do that all through the drlynn.com.
Yes, they can.
Any
Yep.
any live things coming up? Like if I was in Sarasota or maybe you're doing some traveling where I could see you?
I just did a live lecture at Sarasota Memorial Hospital here. So I actually teach at Sarasota Memorial Hospital, and so I just did a lecture there, and nothing directly coming up right now. Yeah.
Okay. Well, look, folks, go follow Dr. Lynn at drlynn.com. She's also on Instagram. Let's see if I remember your Instagram right. It's DRLYNN, or how was your Instagram? I can't remember.
DRLAA.
That's it,
DRL.
DRLAA.
Yep.
You can find Dr. Lynn on Instagram. Go follow her there. Give her all the likes and loves that you can. And folks, you hear me say this every week. It may sound cliche, but giving her a like, a follow, a share of her information on Instagram, liking, sharing, and following this podcast on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, all the places that you listen to podcasts on Apple and all that. That's how this message grows. That's how people find out about what's going on. That's how people know what Dr. Lynn has happening, because you took the time to do that. It may sound cliche and like your kids watching a video and like, share, follow. Guess what? It really does work. It's how the algorithms work. So make sure you're giving her that attention. Make sure you're giving her that little bit of love there, because it matters to all of us. Again, who's next? Oh, Dr. Lynn. Do you know who I got for a guest next week, Dr. Lynn? I can't remember. My brain's not working. Goodness gracious. Oh, that's right. It's John Bukowski is next week. John is a veterinarian, epidemiologist, medical writer, amateur historian, actor, and opera singer, who's just written a book called a fast-paced thriller recently released called Project Suicide, that's about to be published. And he grew up in a factory worker family of 6 kids in Motown. How cool is that? Every step along the way, he embraced his need for change. That's karma, need for change. So we're going to have John next week. I'm so looking forward to that. I forgot. I was like, I know it's coming up because him and I were just talking earlier today. So as we do in every single episode, Dr. Lynn, and like I said, we talked about this before. I think this might almost be 200. We're close. We're getting real close to that 200. And I know you binged them all. And don't log off on me after we're done here. Very, very simple question, Doctor. The guest always gets the final word. So on tonight's episode, Doc, what is the final word?
Well, what I would say is the final word is karma says that we should always strive to be the perfected human being. And that means to do no harm, be true to yourself, and disseminate health, happiness, and peace to all. And if you can do those things, if you can be true to yourself without hurting anybody, you're on your way.
Alrighty, folks, be sure to push your stool in.
This has been a Second Front podcast presentation found on Apple, Spotify, and wherever podcasts can be found.